وبركاته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم جزاكم الله خيرا for joining us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept everyone's fast and everyone's dua. One of the best times to make dua is during the iftar time, where we're there and last moments where we can think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and also think of ourselves and those around us and our loved ones and all people all around the world by making dua for everyone. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give everyone their desires and make it easy for them both in this life and in the hereafter. We're continuing with the second juz, which starts with Sayaqul, and we ended with the first juz with the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And it was the whole sort of theme that went around before the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam was the nation of the past of Bani Israel, where it first started about talking about the devil himself and how he didn't prostrate, and although he knew what he was supposed to do, he rebelled against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commandments. And then afterwards, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts right after Ya Bani Israel and calls them out. And he slowly comes and reveals that they started to adopt that same kind of quality where it was the type of rebellion. There was a group of people amongst them that would always rebel against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them. It wasn't all of them, but there was a group amongst them that would do that. And even then, like we said before, in every group there is people that rebel. So, and then the Prophet ﷺ also, they rebelled against him at his time. Those groups that were there in Medina, they rebelled against the Prophet ﷺ instead of recognizing that he is the Prophet, and after knowing that he is the Prophet, still rebelled. So the qualities didn't change much from the time of Musa ﷺ and the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Then when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends that whole sort of theme with the story of Ibrahim ﷺ, he gives us a role model of Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam, and it starts sort of a new theme that's coming after that. First of all, looking at Ibrahim alayhi salam and how he was the exact opposite, where there wasn't any kind of rebellion, but more an enjoyment to please Allah subhanahu wa taala, to listen and follow His commandments, to always attribute everything, connect everything to Allah subhanahu wa taala. So after doing that, then the story shifts. We look at Surah Al-Baqarah. It starts from right after the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. First he gives the problem and says that there's people who are ignorant what they're talking about. They're very foolish. They're actually trying to say that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam they're putting him down for changing the qiblas. But this was actually a sign, and if we read for Surah Al-Baqarah, it was a sign for that time of what they're supposed to do, but also for us as we read the surah, we sort of get this shift now that we were looking at one scene, and now we're shifting to a different scene. And now we're coming back to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set as a standard for us. And He starts by saying, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. This is actually the middle ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah. It's ayah number 143, and there's 286 there. And this is the middle ayah saying that, and that's how we made you the moderate nation. Wasata can literally mean middle, and interpreted to be moderate. And being moderate, being the best way, is always the best in everything. You don't want to be extreme on one side or the other. You always either fail or burn yourself out. One way or another, it doesn't come out good. But you take a moderate path, whether it be in diet, whether it be in exercise, in studying, and everything. You take a moderate path, it's the best route to take and gives you the best chance to succeed in almost anything. So now they interpret this to not only mean middle, but it also means the best. And that is why we made you the best of nations. And after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes this, and he shifts everybody's the theme, not only by talking about something new, but literally talking about how the qibla was changed. You were praying here, now you're shifting, you're praying somewhere else. You're praying towards Mecca now. So it's a literal scene shift where now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes, and after talking about the qibla, the first thing that He talks about afterwards is the salah. Out of all the commandments Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could speak about, the first thing He talks about is salah. And before that He gives us three different things that in everything you do these three things. Dhikr, remember me. Shukr, be grateful to me. Wala takfurun, and don't be ungrateful to me. In every deed that we do. So when we go to pray salah, what do? The first thing we have to understand that we're making dhikr as we're remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not just going up and down like an exercise. We're remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're worshipping as if He's watching us. And We're grateful that we actually have this prayer there. There's so many instances that if you really think about it and you're praying salah the way you're supposed to, how much favors this salah has been upon us, it has done for us. Where we could have gone one way, it brings us back to the right mode, brings us back to prioritize correctly. The salah has helped us in so many different ways, and we just have to pay attention to it, be mindful of it, and then we'll understand that, oh, I need to be grateful for this. And if we're grateful, there's no way we're going to be ungrateful. But if we're not, we can slowly start being ungrateful, be like, oh no, I got to pray again. Why do I have to do this? And it starts to change. Our mode of thinking starts to change towards that salah. So the first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says is the salah, and He said, seek help. I'm about to give you this load of commandments right now that's coming up in the second sort of scene after mentioning that we're the best of nations. Now just going after the nation itself, which is the nation of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so many commandments are going to come right now. Seek help with patience and salah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just starts giving us the commandments. And each commandment, there's something that's there that gives us a little bit extra, gives us a quality, gives us a characteristic. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first talks about piety and how a lot of people, like especially in that time, they were looking at the Prophet and they're like, look, he's shifting from one qibla to another. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, facing the east or west is not piety. And He starts mentioning what piety is. They're actual deeds. They're what's internal in your heart first. You believe in Allah and His Rasul and His angels and His books. And then it manifests into deeds where you give the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you consider it for all of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation. If you look at that ayah when it talks about piety, you can see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just covers all of it in that sense. And this is just a quick sum up of everything to put it in the right category. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about other things, which is the law in terms of if there's any kind of oppression done for one another between people, what's supposed to be done, and inheritance is mentioned. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of what we're doing right now, which is fasting. And the purpose of that is that taqwa. And if you look at it throughout the whole this whole second scene that we're talking about, taqwa is mentioned over and over and over. It's either muttaqoon, muttaqeen, fattaqullah, wattaqullah. Is just mentioned over and over, reminding us that, listen, you need to be mindful of Allah as you go through these commandments. Your daily life, when you're going through all these commandments, be mindful of Allah. This is one of the problems that happened in the time of Musa alayhi salam, where slowly people removed that and it just became a literal faith. This is the law, 1, 2, 3, X, Y, Z. This is the law. That's it. There's no essence there. And it became to that it just made their life harder and harder. And that's what would happen with us too, if we take and just make all of our all these commandments just a list, and it's just check. We'll find reasons to justify and excuse ourselves, and we'll find reasons to punish others for those, but we will not make the purpose Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has to be mindfulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then talks about defending oneself and fighting if someone's attacked. You don't just sit back and don't do anything about it. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the other commandment, which is Hajj. And even in that, He gives so many different things, that you're not supposed to argue, you're not supposed to be obscene, you're not supposed to do any kind of corruption or fusuq during Hajj. Giving us more characteristics through that deed. And in that same ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the best source of sustenance is at-taqwa again. So constantly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just reminding us that at-taqwa is something that you cannot ever let go. And the other thing that also that's connected to, one thing that we should mention that's connected to fasting, as well as also reiterated over in different places as well, is a dua. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. That I am close to you, call me whenever you want. Whenever you need help in any situation, call me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there to answer all of our calls. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala connects that. And then when He's talking about, when we're reading about Hajj over there, it actually gives us one of the most beautiful du'as. Most of us probably have it memorized. over here it's connected to the ayah of Hajj, which is رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. My Lord, give me the best of this world, the best of the hereafter, and save me from the punishment of the fire. Save me from the fire. Such a comprehensive dua that if we just really think about everything that's within each section of that dua, we don't need anything else. We're taken care of in every portion of our life, every second of our life, it's taken care of. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that, call me, He gives us one of the most comprehensive du'as there to call Him with. Now we can be more precise, obviously. We can say this dua to just be inclusive to everything. And then we can say, Ya Allah, I need this. Ya Allah, I need this. Ya Allah, my parents need this. My kids need this. My family needs this. People, my neighborhood needs this. There's nothing wrong with that. But it just shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just gave us a dua, just takes care of everything. And it's less than a phrase. So easy to say. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then continues to give us more commandments afterwards, where He talks now about the family as well, the relationship between the husband and wife, and what happens in case of divorce, what happens in case of death. All of these now, it's building the standard. It was first, in the first scene, gave us people who chose a different path. Although they were favored, although they were blessed, they were given so much, they chose a different path, a path of ungratefulness. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says, you guys, I want you to turn away from that path. I want you to face a different way. This is the new standard for you. Take this path. Along this path, have taqwa. Work on it. It's an internal feeling, a consciousness that's within your heart, where whatever you're doing, whatever you're saying, you're thinking of Allah while you do it or while you say it. And that remembrance there is influencing it. And now, once you see and you do it a few times, you're like, whoa, this is very beneficial. I was about to say something that could have ruined something, a relationship. It could have ruined the trust that people may have. But my taqwa stopped me from saying it. Alhamdulillah. Now you start to be grateful for the taqwa. And what does that happen? When we are grateful for something, it only increases and get more, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us with more and more and more. So many commandments there. But the first thing that we should all look for and use as the head, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions in the hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions first over here, is the salah. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help through the salah. All of this, it looks like it's a lot. It looks like it's a lot to do. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help with that salah. You'll see it's so easy, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make every single one of us as pious as the most pious person that's walked on the face of this world. But all we need is say, Ya Allah, please do it. And actually want it. The taqwa will make sure that we don't have a hidden agenda there. It's Allah that's making us say the dua. The dua itself is getting the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, we just wait for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open the path for us, and we just keep walking. That's how easy it is. But it's sometimes when the taqwa is not there, or when the taqwa is clouded by some agenda, by some thought, by some desire, then all of a sudden, even though there's a path laid out for us, we're just like looking the other way. We're now turning back from that qibla, going and looking at something else that's distracting us. Go back. Face only the straight path. And the straight path, again, just so there's a disclaimer and people don't misunderstand, it's not just going sitting in the corner of the masjid and not doing anything. It's living your life as a student, as a worker, as a baller, as a basketball player, as whatever you do for entertainment. You enjoy your life. But when you do it within the boundaries that's set for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you're staying within that boundaries for a reason, what is that reason? That's the taqwa. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then finishes the story by another story. We'll talk about that next time as it plays into the next scene, inshallah. So, jazakumullah khairan. Again, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of us. Inshallah, I'll start playing the Quran tonight. It will be by Sheikh Al-Mu'aqili. He will be reciting the second juz. Also, it's like one of the things that I mentioned, that the word taqwa has been mentioned over and over. If you want your kids to a little bit pay attention, try to ask them, see how many times is the word taqwa, whether it's wattaqullah or muttaqun or muttaqeen, does it come up? Try to count and see how many times it comes up, and see, like, it's a little game for the kids so that they can listen to the Quran, follow it, and count it, and just really just after that reiterate in your minds that subhanallah, this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to constantly pay attention to at-taqwa. So jazakumullahu khairan. Inshallah, I'll start the Quran, I'll recite the second juz, and I'll be back after that. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.